Welcome to There Is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell. I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I'm the owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs, and I've been in business since 1994, trying to help individuals, and I would argue my area to get more healthy and well and fit, because it's a passion I absolutely believe in. It is Monday, March 27th, I believe. Yes, wow. Time is flying by. I just finished exercising myself, did 30 minutes on the spin bike trainer and 30 minutes or so on the treadmill. And that's how I love to start my day. I want to thank Jonathan and Lyn Gildon of the Gildon Group at Realty Pros. They are also firm believers in exercise, and they're always training and working to be better real estate agents. I absolutely recommend them and refer to them, and I will put their information in the show notes. So I'm sitting here doing the morning podcast, drinking my recovery smoothie from my workout this morning. I wouldn't say it was an overly vigorous workout. On Mondays, I tend to do lighter cardio. On the weekends, I train a little bit harder, longer for sure, typically on the bike. And so Mondays is more of an easier day for me, typically. And that brings me into the subject of today's podcast, and that is recovery. I had a question/statement from a person I know, and he seems to be asking a lot of the questions lately. So, I'd love everybody to come at me with things that they want to know more about, or simply want reinforcement on, or maybe they think other people should know more about. So hit me up. Everybody that has found their podcast published. So I like to do it. But he was asking me about recovery. What's the big factor in this, and how much does sleep matter, and how much does rest matter, and all that. And that's a great topic, and it's got so many different variables to it. So let me try to tackle that with you here. First, let's talk a little bit about the physiology of recovery, the method to the madness, all right? So we have a principle. There are 7 principles to physical fitness, and one of the principles that covers this is called recuperation. And recuperation is exactly what it sounds like. If we work hard, we need to rest hard. We can't continue to train day in and day out, or work day in and day out, because it's really all the same thing, and expect to get maximal results. So that is the principle of recuperation. So that's going to some of the social science of health and fitness. And then from a hormonal response to physical fitness, we have what is called anabolic responses and catabolic responses. All right. So catabolic means to tear down or to break down. In order to rebuild, we have to break down. That's how muscle fibers recover, or that's how muscle fibers grow. Muscle fibers are maximized by full recruitment when we use them, say working out in the gym. They are slightly torn, which enables them to grow back as greater individual muscle fibers. That is called catabolism. All right. This happens when we do cardio, when we do everything. It just happens like in different intensities. So in cardio, because we're doing so many repetitions over the course of a minute, minutes, and then hours, it happens with lower intensity, but it happens. We eventually fatigue the muscle fibers. When we are doing strength training, And lifting intensely, it happens sooner versus later, but it's still the same thing. And the more intense we work and the longer duration we work, the more catabolism that is occurring. And if we do double duty, so to say, where we go hard and long, we are definitely creating a lot of catabolism, which will need recovery. So that's breakdown. Anabolism means growth. All right. So think of anabolic steroids. That's growth steroids. All right. So anabolic means growth. Catabolic means breakdown. We create catabolism, breakdown, during our workouts or during our stressful times. We bring about an anabolic response when we rest. All right. So we can't get anabolic if we don't rest. If we don't allow those positive repairing hormones and nutrients to get into our system, we will not grow. I've been quoted as saying many, many, many times, I would rather have the less talented athlete that is fully recovered in an event than the more talented athlete that is not recovered in an event. Cowards make weakness of us all, right? The great saying, which I think I just butchered, but I know you know what I mean, all right? We just can't perform at our best if we're tired. We cannot. And we don't always know when we're tired. And some of the more advanced athletes are very much less in tune with their body and have no idea how chronically fatigued they are. All right. So now that I covered a little bit of the social science part of it as far as the principles go and the physiological parts of it as far as anabolic and catabolic goes, let me talk a little bit about what gets us there. All right. And this is a little more of the social science side of things. And I think all of you know, or if you're just tuning in, you're learning or will learn that, I'm part psychologist here and I'm part physiologist. I have degrees in both areas and I love using both. And I would probably argue I use the psychology almost more. And I love the ability to be able to hit the pause button for a second because then I can take a big swig of my recovery smoothie. Okay? So, now, what gets us there? Now, it's interesting, and I want to try to get you to see and maybe put yourself into an honest classification. Although, maybe not. After just listening to a podcast myself on something else regarding human nature, maybe have somebody else put you into a category, because I don't think we often see ourselves as we might be. But here's the question. Are you very driven, very motivated, push yourself really, really hard? Or are you more the type to not be, where you need to be pushed, where getting out the door to exercise is a struggle for you? Eating right is a struggle for you. And again, I'm not making any judgments or classifications here. Both types of people, and oftentimes people are somewhere in between, but it's fine. I mean, there's no right or necessarily wrong way, but we have to understand what and who we are so we can decide how to become better. So which type are you? Highly motivated, push yourself really hard, kind of hard on yourself, or typically defend yourself a lot, don't push yourself very hard and need others to, or other things, extrinsic motivations to motivate you. So which type are you? The ones who struggle most with recovery are the former. The people who push themselves really hard, drive themselves really hard, and typically don't give themselves many days off. And notice I say drive self. That's big, because people who are driven by other people definitely can get overtrained, definitely can overdo it, definitely need to think more about rest, for sure. But they don't have the tendency to push themselves as hard. So they're not going to be as prone to overtraining as the first group. So that group might have the coach say, okay, guys, take a day off. And they take a day off. They're like, yep, no questions asked. This is great. It's a day off. I'm not doing anything physical. Now, the other group who might drive themselves really hard, and again, typically we're all somewhere in between, but they might have the same message from the coach and then say, well, how about if I just do an easy couple miles? Or how about I just do abs and core at the gym, whatever type of athlete we're talking about here. There's a difference in that mentality, all right? But here's what I'm alluding to. The difference in the mentality actually makes a huge difference in the recovery, because that person tends to kind of cheat towards more work all the time, and the other person who needs the motivation from others tends to cheat more in the rest category all of the time, all right? So the first step into answering the question that the great texter and caller asked is, what category do we fall into mostly? Now, we all need rest. I mean, we all need that anabolic response. We all need it. But the one who is more apt to push themselves constantly needs to be getting on this sooner versus later, okay? So that's the first step. What category are you? And if you are in the former group, okay, the group who pushes yourself very hard, you're going to have to do more what's called passive and active recovery phases to help you, meaning you're going to have to go out of your way to recover more, all right? Because, again, if you are chronically overtrained, most likely you are underperforming, all right? Now, I told another frequent question asker that I was going to tell him the story of a guy named Casey Viator. And, I'm going to tell it here because it is actually part of this story, and I'll tell it briefly. But he was a professional bodybuilder of the 70s, and he was very, very talented. And he came here, when I say here, he came to this part of Florida and worked with some friends of mine in the 70s, back when they were pushing Nautilus, back when they were working for Nautilus, and Nautilus had a lot of different training modalities, not just equipment. And he comes into town, and he wanted to learn how to get big, because he heard that they had some secrets to get big, right? So he comes in, they meet with him, they do his measurements and weight and all that stuff. And back then it was really big on girth measurements. And I believe his arms were like 20 or 21. They're huge, like huge arms, They did all of his measurements. And then he was eager, I don't remember where he's from. I'm thinking maybe California, but I'm not sure. And, not that this matters at all, but I heard a super nice guy, super eager to get in better shape, get bigger. He wanted more muscle. So he was all excited, and he's meeting with the team. The team says, well, you're from California, I think, but I know wherever he came from, he was with the typical group of guys who trained every single day, major muscle groups every day, and pushed themselves really hard, And they said, well, here is step one of your lesson. You're taking the rest of the week off. You're going to beautiful Daytona Beach every day, and you're going to get some sun. You're going to get some recreation. You're going to lay around. You're going to play. You're going to not work out. And he was like, oh my God, this sucks. I don't want to do that. I'm going to shrink. So legend has it, and I believe the legend because I know these guys who were there, and I know the guys that did the measurements. They did them, and believe it or not, within a week after no working out, His biceps, if I remember correctly, were like a half an inch bigger. I know that they were bigger for sure. So basically what they said was, dude, you were so broken down. You needed a rest just to get the anabolic properties flowing through your bloodstream. So he was blown away. And the lesson that they were teaching, which is such a great lesson, is we grow in recovery. And it takes a really disciplined athlete to recover. I mean, it takes discipline to recover. That took discipline for him. He was a professional bodybuilder on stage with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno and Franco Columbu and those types. And he finished Mr. America one year. And I believe he was third in Mr. Olympia behind the great Schwarzenegger. So this was hard, but he did it. And the lesson was learned. And from what I understand, after that point, they taught him how to train really intensely, but then rest. Really intensely, and then rest. And from what I understand, his career went on to become even greater than it was. All right. So we have to learn that that's called passive rest. All right. That's passive rest. We need both passive and active rest if we're going to be our best. That's two parts of this recovery thing. Passive rest is you're doing absolutely nothing. You're getting your amount of sleep that you need every night. Now, the question always is, how much is the perfect number of sleep, perfect hours of sleep? We don't know. I mean, there are different gauges out there, but the reality is nobody knows for sure. And also the reality is if you obsess too much over not getting any sleep, you're not going to get even as much sleep as that. So we do have to be careful with that. It's kind of weird. It's like we know we need more sleep, but we know stressing about more sleep makes us get less sleep. All right. So we do need our sleep. How much is really hard for any particular person to say, but we absolutely need our sleep. I would say focus on the behaviors leading up to bedtime, and that would encourage more sleep. So limited screen time before you turn in to go to bed. Don't eat too late in the evening before you go to bed. Don't do things that upset you, like maybe send emails or work and stuff too close to bedtime. Find things that are relaxing at night, like talking to your partner or talking to your friends or watching some relaxing TV like movies or Netflix or sports. Those behaviors leading up to bedtime, maybe having a little chamomile tea would be a great idea to help relax you before bedtime. That would be where I would first suggest to start. Instead of worrying about how many hours, change what you have control over, and that is your going to bed behavior. All right. I'm guilty of the screen time one. I use my phone a lot to read on, and then I check sports, and that's all an excuse because it's sitting right there. Then I'm going to check it. So that's my bad habit that I'd like to actually work on. But we absolutely need sleep, and that is called passive recovery. We're doing nothing in recovery, and that is so critical. Naps are also an absolutely fine thing to do. Making sure that we sit down enough. Again, we have to get back to, are we the hard driver that doesn't need anybody to motivate us, or are we the person that needs to be motivated all the time? Because that does change it a little bit. If we're really having trouble with our motivation being active, the last thing I want to tell somebody to do is to sit more, because they're finding out that sitting is the new smoking. So we don't want that. But if you're the type A that's driving, you probably need to sit and put your feet up a little bit more, okay? Now, those are passive recovery techniques. Active recovery techniques are actively doing things to help your recovery. Stretching after workouts is great. Stretching the day between workouts is great. Food. We have to fuel our athletic body. Fuel adds to our recovery. In fact, nutritionists, sports nutritionists specifically, have pointed out that the most important snack or meal comes immediately after a hard workout. Have you had your nutrients that you need right after a hard workout? Which is why I kept alluding to the fact that I'm hitting the mute button here for a minute every so often and taking a little sip of my smoothie, because I want to point out how important that is. You need a little bit of quality protein and some complex carbohydrates immediately following an intense workout. And I just took another sip, okay? So having nutrition immediately following a workout is a form of active recovery. Another thing that is part of an active recovery is active exercise. That's kind of what I did today, although I would be lying to say that it was at recovery mode. It was maybe slightly higher than that intensity. It was maybe around 70% of my maximum heart rate, which is light, but I wouldn't exactly call it recovery. Recovery exercise is more around 60% of your maximum heart rate, very, very low. And the idea is to help dissipate all of the lactic acid that has collected in the muscle cells and to help improve circulation, increase circulation, so all those nice healing properties and nutrients can be brought to your body. Okay, that's a part of active rest. All right, so let me just finish this up by talking about that. The way we often get overtrained is, and again, I hate to keep doing this, but it's very important. We can't paint everybody with a broad brush, okay? The people that tend to overtrain are the people that tend to overtrain. As Yogi Berra as that sounds, as that is, it's not everybody pushes themselves to the levels that people who are very self-motivated do. So everybody is a little bit different. Now, let me give you illustrations of what happens in the gym as a trainer. I've been doing this since 1994. Now, not everybody who goes to a personal trainer lacks self-motivation. That's not true. If they completely lack self-motivation, they would have never picked up the phone to call. So there are different degrees. And I really am one of those people that pushes themselves very, very hard. At the same time, I can still benefit from somebody pushing me. All right. So we do have, again, two types of people that will come to the gym. Some are very self-motivated and they want the trainer for accountability and to be pushed. And some aren't. And again, that's okay. I can tell you this much. The ones who aren't recover a heck of a lot better, and they probably have a lot less stress. So that's a positive. So we'll have some that say, all right, give me 10. And they'll give you 10, and that's it. And then you'll have others, you'll say, give me 10, and they'll get the 10. They'll look at you, can I do 12? Okay, your form's still good. Sure, 12. Can I do 15? Okay, yep, sure. So even in the realm of personal training, you're going to have two different types of people and then everybody in between. All right. So we have to understand that there are different types of motivation in that. So that's kind of where that begins. When you are very driven, you have a tendency to do more than you need to do. And I am guilty of that. I will follow a specific routine, and just yesterday, because I like to do some of my strength training on Sundays because I have a little more time in the gym to myself and all those great things. So Ellen and I are working out, and it's already a pretty good workout, intense workout. And it's like, I want to do another set of rope curls. That's where you use the rope and do curls, and it's good for your grip. I want to do another set. So people who aren't as motivated, and I'm really not trying to prop myself up here. I'm really, really not, because I don't necessarily think that's a totally awesome categorization all the time, because it definitely, I'm one that has to absolutely when I stop this podcast, re-listen to it and follow it. Okay. So, but that's where we tend to start to get ourselves into trouble. Doing more than we actually need to do. Not being objective, not following our training logs and looking back and going, well, I did this. Let me increase just a little bit and then I will, progress. No, got to add on, got to do this. It's the runner who says, I'm supposed to run 3 miles today. I felt great. I ran 4. Because there are people that say, I'm supposed to run 3 miles today. I got the 3 miles and thank God I only had to run 3 miles. There are 2 different types of people in that. All right. So both need rest, but one needs to think about it more than the other. One needs to basically start the recovery in the gym and say, enough is enough. Whatever workout I wrote for myself, like in my case, or whatever workout my coach wrote for me in their case, I need to follow. More isn't better. There was a reason why we objectively put this down on pen and paper when we started and didn't go by how we feel. There's a reason for that because we're being objective. There's a reason I write every workout out before somebody comes to the gym and I know exactly what I want them to do. And if I push them, say, harder than that, I'm not being objective. And if I allow them to push themselves harder than that, I'm not being objective and the inmate's running the asylum and that's not good. So there's a reason for that. So the first step is to make sure we're not doing more than we need to do and we're following our plan. We're keeping a journal and we're logging our exercise. That's a great way to get started. The next part is to make sure we understand that there's active and passive recoveries. Passive recovery means if your coach or yourself says, Sundays are my day off, then Sundays are my day off. We need to also utilize our active recoveries, most notably making sure we have our recovery shakes immediately after intense exercise. Intense exercise isn't walking the dog around the block, okay? That's, again, where we have to make sure we're categorizing ourselves correctly, all right? So intense exercise is a hard strength training session of 30 minutes at the gym where you want the failure on your weights or close, or an interval workout on the bike, or a Peloton workout, or a CrossFit workout, or a hard run at the track, or a long day on the bike, or a long run. Those are hard workouts you need your recovery drinks after. And then we definitely need to do the best we can to get enough sleep because we will not be our best if we don't get enough sleep. How much is enough? Again, I don't know and I don't want you to obsess over it, but I do want you to think about your bedtime behaviors. Think about going to bed. That's one thing you have control over. You can take your phone, turn it off at a certain time and not pick it up. Man, I know that is freaking hard. I know it, but it can be done. All right? And then you can talk to your partner or your kids and have a nice relaxing evening. Have some chamomile tea. Have some other kind of relaxing ginger tea or something like that. Don't eat too close to bedtime. Don't exercise intensely too close to bedtime. Don't watch the stupid news. Don't do things that get you upset. Read. Get to bed without your phone. Keep your phone in another room. And then start to get the habit of sleeping more. And just maybe you improve your sleep. All right? And also see a chiropractor if you need to. Because I want to thank chiropractic physician Dr. Doris Antos, who is another one of our sponsors who's phenomenal that we absolutely refer to. She's a graduate of Palmer College here in Port Orange, and she's located on Granada Boulevard. All right? That's another form of active recovery. I will put her information in the show notes. Until next time, be max fit, be max well.